Hi, and welcome back to Showing Up Whole, the place where we discuss alignment in mind, body, heart, and spirit in every aspect of our lives. Today, it is the equinox, and with that, we are talking a little bit of balance, a little bit of the scales that tip in one direction and another, and I'm also going to give you some guidance on three things that it's really important to avoid right now. So let's get started. Hi, and welcome back, everyone. I actually am going to say that I did something that I rarely do. Recently, today, I tried recording this podcast a few times, and for some reason, everything kept glitching. So I left for my local meditation class, and I am back here to do it again. And we are actually coming to the end of the equinox because it is evening here, but still, it feels important to really dive in and explore what that really means for all of us. Mainly, though, too, I want to explore the power of this time of balance, this time of a scale where we really are coming out of the traditional sense of winter, meaning this time of contemplation, this supposed to be time of inner work, this time of hibernation where we were really supposed to be working on ourselves. Traditionally, that's what the equinox, especially the spring equinox, is all about. It's a time of spring. It's a time where we're supposed to be coming into a time of being more active, more out in the world. But I find that this is really an interesting year for that. Because the truth of the matter is most of us didn't actually get the contemplative, inner quiet cave time that is so lovely to have in winter. And instead, we kind of went headfirst into the year. Now, at the same time, this year has felt vibrationally raw. There is a sense of vulnerability. There's a sense of a little bit too invasive within our systems. There's a lot of fear happening right now, a lot of anxiety happening right now. And whether you're watching the news or whether you're taking part in anything of actually cognitively knowing what's going on or intellectually knowing what's going on, the truth of the matter is that energetically you're picking up on what's going on. And even that just comes down to seeing local gas prices, you're going to know that there's some shifts. So nervous systems are more triggered than they might normally be, especially in ancient times when the equinox really signified that beginning of a new year. So within all of that, we are at this unique position of really claiming ourselves more than ever before. In a lot of ways, claiming our inner world, claiming our focus, claiming our nervous systems, claiming our hearts is really the only thing that brings a certain level of stability within us at this point in time. Now, that can bring hope, but it can also bring a sense of nervousness because it is a question of actually developing that balance. So let's use equinox for claiming that balance. Let's use this day, which for so many is traditionally a brand new year. Let's use this as a way of understanding what that claiming looks like. You know, let's talk about balance and let's talk about polarities for a sec. We talk about masculine energy and feminine energy, the doing energy and the being energy. We talk about light and dark. We talk about the inner and the outer. We talk about these energies that reflect each other and balance each other out. And that also feeds into the balance of heart and head. We can intellectualize with our heads. Our heads are what we actually resort to as our number one depuzzler, if it were. We immediately try to think through things all the time. And as we think through things, we keep our energy in this intellectual space, which then activates more of an action, more of a reactive, more of a stressed out, trying to sort things out that we don't understand state of being. The heart is what we're so often called to reside in, and yet for some reason our head loves to suggest that that's actually not the place where we should be. So, what if we take this equinox energy and we use it as an invitation of rather than seeing it as the hibernation period ending and the awakening of the time of outward action? What if we reinvent it? I'm not saying that winter has been a time of being in the head, but I will say that head energy is very, very strong right now. I talk to people who are continually sensing that they are caught up in their thoughts, that they can't seem to focus, that they are continually thinking about random things. And it seems like online, there's even more of this kind of soul-sucking energy that you feel your brain sucked into the doom scroll. I myself have struggled a little bit more with actually finding focus, and I can feel the energy easily rise up into my head. So I'm spending a lot of time making sure I'm grounding, making sure I'm regulating, making sure I'm connecting to the earth. And yet, what really wants my attention is my heart. As soon as I drop into my heart zone, I'm sensing this relief, this sense of openness, this sense of expansion, which really calls forward this sense of beingness that really feels important right now. So, what if the equinox, this time of balance, I always see it as a scale where you see this tipping of energies, this tipping into summer from the winter, this tipping of this um, outer inner space. What if we actually use it instead, consciously use it as a tipping scale from head to heart? Head to heart. Like I said, I've actually started recording this podcast a few times today. And even over the last week, I think I held it off for today because in my head somewhere, I was trying to figure out what did I want to talk about for Equinox. Um, a few days ago, I was like, I'm going to come in and talk about how we need to balance out between fear and love. The fact that there is so much fear in the world right now, the fact that we are in this time of heaviness, this time where it's so easy to feel yourself drop down the rabbit hole of what ifs from things that we have no control over. And yet, from that, you feel a shift of love. And as soon as you put your focus on love, again, the same as when you tip into your heart, you feel this openness, this expansionness, this hope, this feeling of presence that you know is all so much more powerful, so much more who you are and what you're here to do. We have to train our brains to give more power to our hearts. And that is a topic for another podcast. But it really is true. We have to be looking at training ourselves to stop focusing on what's out there and instead focusing on our own inner power. A little example of what I mean by this. Let's just actually lean into that even more. If we can actually claim the energy of this equinox time, this time of balancing, this time of things feeling off kilter, and us claiming back a sense of balance, a sense of that scale tipping into a more positive, balanced perspective. You can easily say, well, what power does one person have? But when you claim your power, you actually do make a change. So a little story, okay? I'm going on a few tangents today because again, I'm speaking from the heart here. I'm making sure that we are in this present flow of this energy. But here's a little story. So during World War II, here in Britain, Winston Churchill and the BBC decided to actively put together a moment of peace. This is not widely talked about, and I don't know why we don't hear about this more often, but a moment of peace was established on the BBC radio every single day, 1 minute. And in that minute, everyone was told to focus on peace or a prayer of peace. It was either a meditation, prayer, focus, whatever. Focus on peace, focus on love, focus on from your heart space. This continued throughout the war, and later on, on like in by the end of the war in 1945, a Nazi soldier was being interviewed, and someone said, "So why do you think we won? What tipped the balance?" The response was actually the moment of peace. We couldn't crack it, he said. We couldn't figure out how to work against that. We didn't know what was happening. A moment of peace as a shift to transforming the world. It's it's a fascinating thing when we actually don't try to cognitively in our heads figure out sides of things. When we're not trying to filter through information, and instead we actually use our own personal power as a power of peace, our own heart space to resonate as peace, to shift things, to claim your own inner power to tilt the scales. Now, filter in equinox energy on a personal level too. We all have that inner scale. We all have that time of balance. And what I love about when the fact that we talk about equinox, often you'll say like equinox blessings, or maybe you have a blessed equinox. The idea is that there is an energy behind that, the energy of a loving presence behind that, that then blesses your balancing. So if you are feeling out of balance and the idea of trying to claim your own personal power in order to shine out more love or peace out into the world feels a little bit overwhelming while you try to deal with your own stuff, then acknowledge it. And we accept that because, quite frankly, welcome to the human race. But if we hold into the energy of our hearts in open presence, if we return to a place of love, and in that openness, we allow blessings to occur. We allow the connection of source energy, however you want to see that, whether you see that as God, the universe, all that is higher power, allow it to enter as a frequency of love, because that's what it is. Then you create a different balance again within yourself. The co-creation of the divine within yourself, human and spirit. So let's put some concrete steps into place. I want to give you a few things to I over this week, I've tapped into 3 things we need to avoid now in order to truly claim that heart space energy. And I'm going to grab a drink and then we're going to just kind of review what this has actually looked like, because it's important to kind of uh, put into some intellectual order for our heads to comprehend the balance of the heart. So let me just grab a drink and then I'll be right back. Okay, so let's just regroup here. We have the equinox, a time of balance, a time of understanding that things are in a bit of a scale, and those scales can tip. We can see that scale as heaviness and light. We can see it as dark and light. We can see it as fear and love. We can also see it as head and heart, which is where we actually personalize that energy. Head and heart becomes something that we can identify within ourselves. Are we allowing our heads and our minds to become unfocused and scrambled? Are we allowing our attention to flow to all kinds of different things, or even just sit there scrolling and getting invaded by various things? Or are we insisting in our systems to shift our focus to our hearts, and from that point, show up whole and as a more loving beacon for our own lives, for those around us, and for the world itself? We will all have days where the head wins. And in fact, it's important to remember that the head is needing to reprogram itself, which takes some time. So this is a marathon, not a sprint. It is a muscle in training. But every single shift we make to being the loving presence, the loving light within ourselves, the stronger that light will grow collectively. So we are adding our drops of light. Every single time we choose light, every single time we choose a moment of peace, we are adding to the peace of the world. Every single time we make a choice. Now, I want to discuss with you 3 things to avoid. And by choosing to avoid these things, you are adding to your light. So, the first one is resentment. And I want to say that the first, to choose to not resonate with resentment isn't saying you don't choose to be angry sometimes or you don't allow yourself to be angry sometimes. Things will happen that will make you angry. Things will happen that make you mad. Things will happen that feel like an injustice. The reason why we say resentment is because the anger can sometimes be buried down, fed to your brain, and then become a rock there. It gets set in stone and it sits there within the pit of your stomach and it gets fed continually. The resentment you can feel as it just drops in you and your head continually feeds the chatter. But resentment is the poison it's that we give ourselves. It literally is like a cancer that just sits and grows in our own minds. It doesn't serve anything. There is no movement in resentment. You don't speak up about resentment. Half the time, you just turn bitter because of resentment. You don't, the other person half the time doesn't even know why you're resenting something. It can shift. And if you're resenting a circumstance, it means that it's just stuck energy. Resentment leads to just stuck. And unless you dissolve it yourself by letting go of the resentment, then it will continue to be stuck. And that's just the truth. And it can be hard, or it can feel hard. Your head will tell you that it's hard to let go of that resentment, but it's vital to. You can do everything from imagining it shrinking and melting away. You can imagine up different stories to make the story softer. You can do energy work. You can do things like emotion code. You can do anything that you need to do to release the negative energy out of your body, because that is going to give you the freedom for movement. Because resentment is the opposite of movement. It is, it sits there and it will make you stuck. And when you have resentment in your system and you're stuck with it, then you cannot find that open space. It will always be that thing that you need to resolve first, or yeah, but that happened. It will always be a heavier space. All right. Second, fear. Fear is ultimately the opposite of love. And when we're leaning into our hearts, oh, we can be honest about the fear that we have. We can drop that fear into our hearts and be like, hey, I need to discuss this with you. Hey, this is present and this is in my head and this is where I feel. But your heart will always resonate with love. And your heart will always be, you will always find your way back to your heart when you find the shift to trust, to faith, to appreciation, to your moment, to look up the episode on this podcast about the power of awe and practice that. There, you will feel the shift when you actually find the resonance of love. And then, as I was meditating on this, I must admit, I was a little surprised that this came up, but apathy. Apathy, that state of hopelessness, that state of despondency, that space of whatever, that sense of nothing moving forward. It can be a result of both fear and um, resentment. It can be. But apathy is something in its own right, because apathy is a frozen state of hopelessness. There's an element of despair, but in some ways it actually doesn't even have that much energy to it, because it's like you remove yourself from your human experience. It's like the human experience is just so mundane that some part of you distances it from yourself. I was leaning into apathy because this came up in a conversation once. And as I was meditating on apathy and the solution to apathy, I was really surprised what came to me because what actually came was that the opposite to apathy is creation. Now, I always think creation is the opposite to destruction, but maybe I watched Red too many times. But it was it was actually the opposite to apathy is creation. Because when you are creating, you are calling life energy forth. And I'm not just talking artistic creations. I'm talking everything from baking a cake to planting a garden to creating dialogue in a beautiful conversation, creating higher energies where you actually are just focusing on beautiful things, creating beauty, creating moments of appreciation for beauty. There are so many ways that creation can stretch. And that is a pathway of calling life energy forward. Creation is the language of our souls, and it is how it expresses itself in human life. So when we create, and again, it doesn't matter if it's, I mean, hey, draw a picture and it doesn't matter if it's any good. Dance and it doesn't matter if you have any rhythm. Like, create, express, allow yourself to feel and see what comes up. And suddenly you'll find that the wheels of life begin moving again. As I think about the concept of equinox and this spring energy, this sense of coming out of the sense of winter, the sense of what it was always meant to be cave time and contemplation and inner time, and now we're moving outwards. It makes me wonder actually if we can move that forward to being instead of coming out of a cave time or a contemplative time, that instead it's actually coming out of a stuck time. It's like we had a passageway from one year to another. And in that passageway, the old energies were still lingering. So that can make you feel apathy. It can make you feel fearful. And it can even lead to some resentment. What if, here we are in the equinox, it's actually a question of moving out of those energies, of choosing to move out of those energies, choosing your highest version of yourself. And as you choose that higher version of yourself, the more open, the heart-centered, the creative, the expansive version of you, then that's how your new year really begins. It's always a choice. And it feels like the choice is more powerful now than it has been before. It feels like choosing to find that heart-centered space, that heart openness, to resonate with love, not because another person deserves it, but because it actually feels just better. To resonate with forgiveness for your own well-being. To let things feel open and in flow, and to allow resentments and bitterness and anger to melt. Just because that's what brings more light in. It feels like that would be a beautiful way of acknowledging a new season. And I think that is actually how we can transform things. Might sound like a tall order, but I'm willing to try. Anyway, I wish you all of the best blessings for the equinox, and I'm sending you all my love and all my light. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye now.